escalating tensions in Lebanon and Palestine as Israel expands military operations, imposes movement restrictions in southern Lebanon, and targets civilians. In the occupied West Bank, raids in Tamun and Jenin continue, with homes demolished and casualties rising. Join our special coverage on Qnews, where we tackle the latest developments on both Lebanon and Gaza.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
In a recent statement, Naim Qassem, Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah, emphasized the complexity of the ongoing conflict with Israel, noting that it is a battle of both gains and losses, not one of absolute victory. He reaffirmed Hezbollah's commitment to resisting Israeli occupation in southern Lebanon, rejecting any notion of submission. We refuse the option of subordination to foreign powers, defeat, and surrender, he declared. Qassem also stated that Israel will ultimately be forced to withdraw from the region, solidifying Hezbollah's stance on territorial sovereignty. For further analysis on the current situation in Lebanon, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram Managing Editor Muhammad Azzeddin. Mr. Muhammad, thank you so much for joining us on Qnews. And first off, how do you interpret Naim Qassem's statement about the ongoing battle being characterized by both gains and losses?
Thank you so much for having me. A large portion of Naim Qassem's statements today is to keep up the morale of the Hezbollah affiliates, especially fighters and combatants. In addition to the reality part that Lebanon is suffering from, and part of the population is suffering from, especially the residents of southern Lebanon, whom people are prevented from going back to in spite of the end of the 60 days defined. The occupying forces are still there, preventing the population from returning to their villages, embarrassing the United States of America, and therefore the time frame was extended for another period. And I doubt that the Israeli troops or forces intend actually to leave these villages. There was a scheme that has been approved internally within the Israeli government to stay and establish military zones close to the settlement and taking over all the heights in the southern Lebanon villages. Another thing, the statements of Naim Qassem tackled the continuity of the resistance, and it's holding on to the objectives it has been established for, and that there is no way that Israel would remain or occupy southern Lebanon villages and towns. In addition to reaffirming resistance right to take over the Lebanese territories or to hold on to the to holding weapons and arms.
Yes, sir.
He did not
speaking specifically of the Lebanese continuity in resisting, from here I would like to ask you, what impact could Qassem's remarks have on Hezbollah's stance regarding the conflict with Israel and future strategies as well?
Definitely, what he talked about in his statements was indicated that the conflict will remain ongoing in the future, and the Lebanese resistance will not give in to what's happening, especially with the casualties that Hezbollah has taken in southern Lebanon villages, in addition to the destruction that has been inflicted on civilian population houses in southern Lebanon, and the continuation of the suffering. A lot of dead and injured are falling from the Lebanese civilians, and which is one of the Lebanese factions is suffering due to the conflict between Hezbollah and the occupying forces.
Now, sir, let's look at the Israeli actions. How do you interpret Israel's decision to establish new military sites along the northern border?
Of course, this is the expansion and settlement and annexation policies adopted by Israel. Israel does not respect the international law or international border demarcation. They keep cleansing the Palestinian people, evacuating and directing and relocating the West Bank population out of their homes, in addition to occupying parts of the Syrian Golan, and also occupying parts of the southern Lebanon.
Yes, speaking of this point exactly, sir, Israel has been seizing positions in southern Lebanon. How do you assess this deployment, and what are the strategic implications behind it?
The military deployment comes within a secret plan that has been agreed upon with the far right, and which is a complementary to the general schemes to expand the scope of military occupation troops, whether in Gaza or the West Bank or in Syria and finally Lebanon. Now the scheme or Israel is targeting and making claims that occupying some regions, especially with high topography, enables them to protect and secure their settlements in Palestine. So, in exchange for each Israeli settlement, the Israeli troops is making an excuse of protecting and securing this settlement, finding regions for military deployment, which means the occupying parts of southern Lebanon. Of course, this is a violation to international agreements and trespassing on the Lebanese sovereignty, in addition to an attempt to get out of the ceasefire agreement sponsored by the United States of America and the international community as a whole.
Now, sir, Israel justifies its actions by seizing positions in southern Lebanon to give the Lebanese army time to fully prepare. Yet, how do these developments affect the Lebanese army to take full control of southern Lebanon?
Of course, Israel is claiming that it will cleanse these areas, looking for armed groups and weapon storages, allegedly. And then they claim that they would hand over the lands to the Lebanese army. Of course, what is happening on the ground contradicts the statements stipulated by Israeli officials. What is happening on the ground is a continuation of occupying lands and parts of Lebanon, trespassing on an independent sovereignty of a state, in addition to expanding the schemes of annexation and this time it is in southern Lebanon. Our concern here that this schemes actually continues as Israel desires to occupy these lands permanently, violating all international laws. And of course Egypt affirms and stresses the sovereignty of the Lebanese lands. There was a meeting between the foreign Minister Affairs of Egypt and Lebanon, which stresses the sovereignty of the Lebanese territories, and Egypt strongly supports Lebanon and its sovereignty and its army, and it does not want to interfere with the internal affairs in Lebanon or the formation of governments and among other internal affairs. Egypt supports Lebanon in the post-conflict stage as well, in the reconstruction phase, and will harness all potential possible to support the Lebanese population.
That was Al Ahram Managing Editor Mohammed Azzeddin. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News and for all the information you provided us with. And this brings us to the end of our special coverage on Lebanon. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG to stay informed. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.